They say tier 1 is these 2 decks and the list.
Yeah, and you know, of the decks that I would consider tier 1, Phoenix, Dredge are 2 of them. Amulet Titan is another one, and then of course, last but not least, is Grixis Death Shadow, because it actually has a pretty decent matchup against basically the other 3 top decks.
Sure, very reasonable. Players are underway here. Arid Mesa is where Corrigan starts. No Shriekhorn, no Faithful Suiting. He'll be passing back. Smith, Spirebluff Canal into Serum Visions is where he'll start.
Yeah, but it looks like Corrigan does have a Cathartic Reunion, and we'll just have to see if he has a Dredger to pair with it to go ballistic on turn 2.
He'll fetch down to 19 end step here.
Yeah, very likely getting it tapped, and obviously getting that green source so he can turn on Life from the Loam at a later date. Now, even though he has Bloodghast in hand right now, right, and there's very little incentive for this deck to fetch black mana outside of casting some of those Dredge creatures. You know, most of the time you just want to make sure that you have green, and you also want to make sure you don't take very much damage from your own stuff.
Well, here's that turn 2 Cathartic Reunion, discards Bloodghast and Life from the Loam, so he'll go to work dredging. It was a little surgical extraction check that was not there, so dredge Loam, that's going to find a Narca Amoeba to put on the battlefield. Shriekhorn and Faithless Suiting go to the graveyard, and he'll draw 2.
Yeah, and a pretty great start from Abe Corrigan, and I want to say I love someone who keeps their side of the battlefield clean, because we have cards on the far left, non-graveyard interactive, cards on the right, graveyard interactive.
Time was when you had to keep your graveyard in order, and it was just real annoying.
Well, you still do technically if there are cards in the constructed format you're playing,
right,
that have any card in it where the graveyard matters. That there's only a handful of cards that do it. Off the top of my head, there's an artifact that eats cards from the bottom of your opponent's graveyard.
Phyrexian Furnace.
Phyrexian Furnace. That was like the old school version of Relic of Progenitus, except it was, I believe you could sacrifice it to target a card in a graveyard and exile it and draw a card. It might have even been a slow cantrip, like a Mistress Bauble.
Too much text, almost assuredly.
Yeah, but aside from that, there's also, of course, Nether Shadow, and there's probably Death Spark, I think, and maybe 1 or 2 others I'm forgetting.
Yeah, a few oddballs. Turn 2 for Ken Smith, Basic Island, another Serum Visions. That's all he's going to have there on the second turn. See what more Abe Corrigan can do. Another Cathartic Reunion, that's going to be a good start. And he picked up Stinkweed Imp. That plus Life from the Loam discarded.
Yeah, it's a pretty big draw there for Corrigan off of... So he only had the 1 Dredger on the previous Cathartic Reunion. Was able to find another Cathartic Reunion off of the fresh draw 2. But not a ton going on. There are a couple of Bloodghast in the graveyard. But unless Abe has another land here... he's not going to be able to get back these 2 Bloodghasts. See if he has it.
Yeah, so he dredged Loam, Imp, and Dark Blast was the third one there. So 2 Bloodghasts, 2 Faithless Suitings. His hand's gummed up by a lot of stuff he wants to dredge over. I see a Creeping Chill and Narc Amoeba in there. So yeah, he just kind of has to pass after attacking for 1. 19 all. Ken Smith will Thought Scour end step. Does find an Arclight Phoenix. He's doing his quote-unquote dredging a little bit better, I guess.
Yeah, 2 decks that play Faithless Looting and that utilize the graveyard in some way. Obviously, Dredge taking that a bit to the extreme, but there's a Phoenix deck still puts the graveyard to use thanks to that powerful new creature from Guilds of Ravnica, Arclight Phoenix.
Let's see what Smith can do as far as recurring that Phoenix. He'll start his turn with a Manamorphose, usually a good sign. We have these players here at 6-0, 6 rounds in the books for this tournament, and if you're checking this out at home, you can use the Cardboard Live extension to check the standings of just everybody in the tournament. Really cool new feature that we have employed here.
Yeah, I love the fact that you can check standings on Cardboard Live now, and as well as seeing the deck list that you're watching in action. So if you're curious what the opponent is drawing to in a situation that is dire, you can see that, which is pretty cool.
Manamorphose made blue-red. Smith will use the blue to Thought Scour himself. That one just showed a couple lands. Nothing too exciting there.
He's got a red mana floating. Looks like he also has a mountain and another Manamorphose if he so chooses. He could go Manamorphose, cast Thing in the Ice, and then still bring back the Phoenix.
So he will play mountain as the land for turn. Red mana 1 away. It's a Lightning Bolt, and that's going upstairs. Going to ignore these Narc Amoebas. Corrigan at 16.
I mean, that makes sense, right? Ken does have Thing in the Ice in hand, so if Abe wants to chump block with the Narc Amoebas, that's fine. But if he chooses to soak the damage, there's a chance that the Thing in the Ice gets to bounce them, and that Lightning Bolt is much better served at going to the Dome.
So Arclight Phoenix comes back. It's going to attack. It'll bump Corrigan down to 13. go back his way. Untap, Dredge Life from the Loam, Scalding Tarn, 2 prized amalgams.
Yeah,
right?
That's what you want to see.
Yeah, now he can use the Life from the Loam to get the lands. You know, he previously had missed land drop, but he's all set now.
Yeah, no, it's curious. I'm curious to see if Ken actually has a surgical extraction right here, because there's a chance that he's able to strip the Bloodghast, which will lock the prized amalgams in the graveyard for at least another turn. But I feel like he might have fired it off by now. There's a bit of danger in not using your surgical extraction proactively against something like Bloodghast, simply because if they use a fetch land to recur the Bloodghast, they still have the ability to crack said fetch land in response to the surgical extraction to bring it back.
One of the Narcomoebas bumps Smith down to 18 here. Now Corrigan will use Life from the Loam, picks up 3 of his lands. So Blood Crypt, Mana Confluence, and Mountain were grabbed. He'll play the Confluence, and here's a Bloodghast. Prize Amalgams are coming back too, so no surgical extraction from Smith.
And this is threatening a lot of damage next turn, but it's not quite lethal. So Corrigan's going to need a little bit of help if Ken sticks a Thing in the Ice this turn. But there's also a chance that Ken actually just goes off, plays Thing in the Ice, Manamorphose into a free spell and 2 other 1-mana spells. But it looks like Corrigan here just going to clean up. Just a bit of a misstep.
I suppose you can end up with too many cards in hand when you miss land drops and pick up 3 with your Life from the Loam.
Yep. 2 mana here from Ken Smith. Going to deploy that Thing in the Ice. Manamorphose at the ready. Does he have another free spell? And if he does he also have 2 other spells to pair with it to bounce all of those Dredge creatures?
He's shocked for Steam Vents down to 16. You can tell he feels the pressure, but he's just going to go ahead and attack with this Arclight Phoenix before he starts casting more than the Thing.
I mean, there's very little reason to bounce before attacking, right? Because if you attack in with the Arclight Phoenix, you kind of force Abe to chump block or take the damage. And Abe here deciding to chump to protect his life total a little bit in the face of that Thing in the Ice.
Well, post-combat, Smith's going to fire off Manamorphose, Thing in the Ice to 3 counters. Draws Snapcaster Mage off Manamorphose. That doesn't seem like it's likely to be a big factor in this game. Blue and red mana floating.
No, I think with like a gut shot or something here, Ken actually has the ability to transform Thing in the Ice right now if maybe he needs a little bit of luck.
Uh-oh. Cast Serum Visions, Drew, and Scry. Looks like a missed Thing in the Ice trigger.
Ooh, that could come back to haunt him too. It's also important to note Corrigan actually has a Dark Blast in hand too, so if this Thing in the Ice isn't transforming, there's a chance that Ken might get blown out by that Dark Blast if he decides to block a prized amalgam.
Looks like there's a Lightning Axe in the front of Smith's hand.
No, decides to just pass the turn, I think. Oh, nope, he's casting that Lightning Axe with his last mana, pitching an Arclight Phoenix, and unfortunately for him, this is actually post-combat, so can't get it back this turn, but he can get it back next turn, maybe.
Just took out one of the amalgams there. Got the Thing in the Ice trigger this time, so that's down to 2 counters.
And of course, the mistrigger policy has gone back and forth over the past decade or so. These days, as far as I can tell, every trigger that you control, you can potentially miss. Your opponent is under no obligation to point it out. If it ever does get pointed out to you or you remember it late, the opponent effectively has the ability to choose whether or not it goes on the stack. And that just is to keep it from being abusable.
So Corrigan's going to Dredge Stinkweed Imp for his draw step here. Finds a Creeping Chill. It's going to be the first one we've seen this game. Reverse those life totals, 16 Corrigan to 13 Smith.
Yeah, not only did he hit a Creeping Chill, he also hit a Conflagrate. And his hand is 8 cards right now because he discarded a hand size earlier. I'm no math scientist, but I'm pretty sure you can go Conflagrate for all of it at the Dome and attack for the win. But, again, I'm no math scientist.
I will conflagrate you for X equals a lot.
Yeah, just 8 ya. I mean, Ken has a gut shot in hand, I think, but I think he only has the 1 free spell. If he has 2 free spells in hand, he can actually just get Abe this turn, no matter where he targets with the Conflagrate. If he targets the face, all the creatures get bounced. If he targets the Thing in the Ice, it goes up to 8 toughness, but he wouldn't target it for 8 damage anyway,
Looks like a discard of 7 for the Conflagrate. 4 at the thing in the ice, 3 upstairs, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, this works too. This is just playing it safe more than anything, but it's actually still lethal anyway, thanks to that Bloodghast being discarded and the land kept in hand.
Yeah, Smith 1 to 10, discarded Bloodghast in that land. Bloodghast now has haste, jumps back. There's your 9th and 10th point of damage. Abe Corrigan up a game, dredge over Izzet Phoenix.
Yeah, that was just really impressive stuff from Corrigan. There were basically 2 lines that won the game, and he found one, hitting that really strong dredge 3, hit Conflagrate and Creeping Chill, and stole the game when Ken Smith was so close to stealing it with that thing in the ice.
So players going to look to their sideboards as we go into game number 2. For Abe Corrigan, his sideboard is 4 Nature's Claim, 3 Lightning Axe, 3 Ancient Grudge, 2 Surgical Extraction, a Collective Brutality, a Dark Blast, and an Assassin's Trophy. How much of this do you like?
So this sideboard is built with 4 Nature's Claims, obviously, as a means to protect yourself from the likes of Leyline of the Void, Grafdigger's Cage, and any number of artifacts and enchantments that would be anti-graveyard. And, you know, that actually starts to take away a lot of your other slots. But Abe's actually built this in such a way where he actually is has quite a few things for Izzet Phoenix. 3 copies of Lightning Axe lets him knock off things like Crackling Drake or Thing in the Ice, which are particularly strong in the matchup. 2 Surgical Extraction are quite good. And then the Assassin's Trophy, just as a catch-all, I think, can come in as well.
Oh, for Ken Smith, now down a game, looking for some up for the sideboard. He has 2 Dragon's Claws, 2 Abrade, 2 Dispel, 2 Blood Moon, a Surgical Extraction, an Anger of the Gods, a Beacon Bolt, a Chandra Torch of Defiance, and a Trancing Melody, a Spell Pierce, and a Shatter Storm.
I just got a little hot and bothered at that Entrancing Melody. Ooh, baby. From Ken's side, I think the cards you're going to want to bring. Hey, no, you can't plug things on our broadcast, Abe. Come on. Anyway, Izzet Phoenix side, you need to have more things interact with the graveyard or exile creatures. Ken here opting to only play 1 copy of Anger of the Gods in the sideboard, but has that 3rd Surgical Extraction in the sideboard with the 2 in the main deck. So has a little bit of play here. I actually quite like the Spell Pierce. Sometimes you just snag a Life from the Loam in the right spot, or a Conflagrate when they go Loam Conflagrate, and it just steals the game. And it's just some point of interaction that you can afford to kind of sit back on most of the time. It's also a way for you to potentially protect Thing in the Ice from a removal spell. I don't really want things like Beacon Bolt or Chandra. You're not really trying to kill things unless, of course, it is Anger of the Gods and exiling.
Dylan Donegan, you see him on the backup off camera there behind Abe Corrigan. He won regionals in Durham. He tweeted his deck list in a sideboard guide. He had Blood Moon coming in against Dredge. Do you have any thoughts on the efficacy of that card here?
I mean, the deck doesn't cast many spells, but one of the spells it likes to cast over and over again is Life from the Loam. And without a copy of Basic Forest, it does shut down the Life from the Loam engine. My only concern is that it costs 3, and a lot of times their engine is online by then. And I would much rather focus personally on trying to dig for things like Surgical to slow them down. Because I think if the game goes long enough, the Dredge deck's going to win. Even if you Blood Moon and they can't Life from the Loam, they can still just keep using Faithless Looting over and over again to churn through their deck, hitting more copies of Narcomoeba. And they could just also just take natural draws to fuel that Conflagrate over time, you know, to kill a Crackling Drake or a Thing in the Ice.
Over on StarCityGames.com, we're selling you Ravnica Allegiance, the most recent sets to launch in the standard legal format. We got booster boxes for $94.99. If you're a premium subscriber, it's $90.24, a nice clean number.
Yeah, and you get the 5% discount if you're an SCG Premium member, and that works on all the singles too, you know. And we also have singles for Ravnica Legions. You can pick those up if you need your Grow Chamber Guardians, maybe a Prime Seeker Vanifar. You want to try that out in Modern. Or try out that new Gruul deck that's been popping up on Magic Arena. You can get you some Domri Chaos Bringers, but you can find all that and a lot more over at go.starcitygames.com/RNA.
This Ravnica set's been real hits.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone loves a good dual land, and everyone loves the guilds because color combinations very rarely, and whenever a set is released, come with their own identity. And I think that giving each of those pairs their own unique kind of influence on the world around it just feels special in a lot of ways, because if you really like a color combination, you kind of start to see some of those qualities in yourself, because the way they designed those guilds and those color combinations, they did it on purpose. You know, they wanted the Izzet guys to be the smart ones, right? You know, they're the brainiacs who come up with the wind turbines and the steam powered engines and stuff like that. You know, the Dimir people, the people who like to play Dimir, they're usually a little bit more nefarious, sneaky. They like to mill you out. They like to beat you in weird, strange ways, and they like to beat you in ways that you don't see coming. So, as far as Magic identity is concerned, I think that's one of the reasons why Guild of Ravnica is such a big hit.
Of course, the Golgari, most known for breaking the core tenets of the competitive deck building when Dredge first hit the scene. This mechanic was originally kind of launched at this value, kind of grindy sort of thing. Graveshell Scarab was actually like the marquee card that they were highlighting.
Yeah, and they had it. They actually thought that the higher the dredge cost was, the worse the card was, because eventually you're going to deck yourself, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't really take into consideration the fact that, I don't know, Narcomoeba existed, or Dread Return, or Cabal Therapy and Legacy. There's just so many graveyard-centric cards that if you mill over your entire deck, you can just kill your opponent a lot of times thanks to Bridge from Below, Dread Return, Cabal Therapy, and even in Modern, when a lot of those cards are banned or non-existent, you know, you still have a lot of cool things you can do, like Conflagrate, Life from the Loam, etc.
It's like Abe Corrigan did mulligan down to 4 in this game. Dredge does do that sometimes. We'll find out how functional his hand is in a second.
Well, he's got a Dredger and a Cathartic Reunion, but he doesn't have a second land. So if he's able to find it, he can pitch Dredger and Bloodghast. Dredge 5, maybe get some fresh cards up in there. And if Ken Smith doesn't have a Surgical Extraction, it could be bad news for him.
Ken Smith started with the Polluted Delta. He'll use that to go find a Steam Vents tapped at Corrigan's end step. He's at 19. Corrigan just started with Gemstone Mine. Here's an island for Smith, and there's Thing in the Ice.
Now I'll say this, Ross Merriman and myself on Versus Live this past week, we actually tested out the new London Mulligan that's going to be introduced at Mythic Championship London in just a few months. And Dredge, I feel like, is going to be one of the biggest benefactors of that new Mulligan rule, simply because in this 4-card hand, what you could do from the Dredge player side of things, you would actually get to, put one of those cards that's in your hand, like the Bloodghast, and turning into another land, because you got to see a fresh 7. So even though this was a very good 4-card hand, he could have potentially had a perfect 4-card hand.
So Corrigan had Lightning Axe for the Thing in the Ice, discarded Stinkweed Imp. No Dredge, though, as you mentioned, was missing that second land and didn't draw it, just naturally drew a Stinkweed Imp. Yeah,
there's a possibility that Stinkweed Imp discard with the Lightning Axe over the Bloodghast was a bait. He kind of wanted Ken to burn a Surgical on the Stinkweed Imp because he didn't really want to Dredge on the following turn. And he just wants to play Cathartic Reunion next turn and keep most of the threats in his deck, because if he discards Bloodghast, there's a good chance he gets snagged by that Surgical Extraction.
Opt and a tapped Steam Vents for Smith. Nothing again on Corrigan's side. Going to keep missing that second land drop. Smith's going to Thought Scour over a Crackling Drake and a Scalding Tarn before we go back his way.
Now, wouldn't it be nice if both players in a game of Magic could play Magic, Ryan? And I think that is what the London Mulligan encourages, just playing Magic, doing the things that your deck is supposed to do, forcing your opponent, even when you're low on overall resources, to have the right type of interaction to beat you.
I churn out some hot takes from time to time, but when it comes to changes in rules, general updates, I try to keep a sober mind about it. And the London Mulligan, I think that I was one of very few people saying that this might be a very good change when they first announced it.
No, I mean, I am of the impression that it's going to be fantastic for formats featuring a ton of fair decks and clean interaction. Your discard effects, your counter spells, your creature removal. Those are the types of formats, I think, where the London Mulligan is going to be best, and it's going to feel the best. Now, when you get into older formats, it's going to start to feel a little bit worse sometimes, because you start to see, degenerate decks taking advantage of the Mulligan, building their deck in such a way that they can utilize that Mulligan, and then it starts to get a little sticky. There may come a time where something might need to be banned if that London Mulligan does get fully implemented. But for the most part, I'm under the impression that it is going to be good overall for Magic.
Ken Smith taking an aggressive line here as Corrigan just misses those lands. You saw an in-step Lightning Bolt, Snapcaster Mage, Lightning Bolt, then an attack from the Snapcaster Mage for Smith. Looks like his hand's kind of gummed up with Lightning Axes and things like that.
Yeah, and Lightning Axe acts as a way to clean up things like Narcomoeba that are in the way. They're not super good, but Ken doesn't have very many cards to bring in the matchup, just has the third Surgical Extraction and the first Anger of the Gods and maybe the Spell Pierce. So his hand is a little bit gummed up, yes, but at the same time, he doesn't really need to move. Abe Corrigan here just kind of stalled on one land, not really doing much of anything, so he can kind of take his time.
Yep. Corrigan just continues to miss that land drop. We'll go back Smith's way. Corrigan now already down to 10. Smith will start his turn with the Thought Scour. If he could add a Phoenix, that'd be a 2-turn clock.
Yeah, I believe he has a Lightning Bolt in hand, so Abe Corrigan's life total is dangerously low, but if he's able to find a land here and Ken doesn't have a Surgical Extraction, Abe can cast Cathartic Reunion, discarding some of those dead cards in hand, maybe another Dredger, and flip over the top, roughly 10 to 15 cards of his deck and potentially give him a chance to squeak out of this game.
Yeah, there's that land. It's Copperline Gorge. She's going to cast Cathartic Reunion here. Discard Stinkweed Imp and Bloodghast. Smith deployed a Thing in the Ice in the previous turn, so things are a bit rougher for Corrigan, but he's going to go to work. He'll dredge Stinkweed Imp off the first draw.
Yep, and now he's found another Stinkweed Imp, so he can potentially just dredge 15 here, and if he hits any Creeping Chills, that can protect his life total. Narcomoeba gives him potential blocker unless that Thing in the Ice is able to transform.
He has found a Narcomoeba and a Bloodghast. Here's a Prized Amalgam. No Creeping Chills in the 15.
Yeah, and that's probably bad news for Abe because Ken's just been kind of sitting on his hand here, and I think there's an insanely good chance he's able to transform Thing in the Ice and attack for lethal on this turn.
The odds seem quite high. He does still have one land on tap, so Corrigan puts in that Narcomoeba, gets back that Prized Amalgam, and Steph Smith's going to fire off a Lightning Axe, discarding a Lightning Axe, Thing in the Ice to 3 counters, actually targeting the Prized Amalgam there.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what he targets because he's just trying to transform Thing in the Ice. And in this scenario, he's got Lightning Bolt, he's got Opt, he just needs to find one other thing.
Drew an Arclight Phoenix for turn. Not clear if he has another discard outlet, so he's going to cast Manamorphose here, Thing in the Ice to 2 counters. Another Arclight Phoenix was picked up.
Yeah, maybe potentially going to regret discarding the Lightning Axe to the Lightning Axe, but with Opt and Bolt in hand, this game is over.
Yes. Yeah, you just really can't miss your second land drop as long as Corrigan did, and he mulled to 4 trying to find a hand, but the games just kind of go this way sometimes.
Yeah, it looks like Ken actually found a Faithless Looting too, so that's nice.
Yeah, opt in the Faithless Looting, that's pretty good. Here's Faithless Looting. Thing in the Ice is going to transform. We'll see 2 Arclight Phoenixes discarded here most likely. Ken's got his Thing in the Ice in the Smoke Perfect Fits.
Yeah, those are pretty good for everything except flip cards.
So Faithless Looting draws 2, picked up a Spell Pierce, discards 2 Arclight Phoenix. Looks pretty lethal from here.
Yeah, just cast Bolt, puts Abe to 5, and then an attack for 7 should be lethal.
How about an attack for 13 as Phoenixes come back?
Yup.
That will do it. Ken Smith's going to tie things up. These players are going to go to Game 3.
Yeah, this is a really close matchup, I think, on the surface. Ken there just had a bit of a slow draw, so he wasn't able to close quickly, even though Abe had a pretty mediocre one. But I think that it's important to note that Ken actually had quite a few removal spells still in his deck, and I mean, I'm not really sure why. The Lightning Axes don't feel particularly useful. But at the same time, any spell is a good spell. There's a reason why the deck can play Gutshot and Surgical Extraction, and they're just fine cards because they are instants and sorceries. And oftentimes, Surgical Extraction, especially in Game 1, is cast as just, hey, trigger Thing in the Ice, or help bring back Arclight Phoenix. And it's possible he just values that discard outlet of Lightning Axe higher than something like Crackling Drake, which is just really expensive and gets chump blocked by Narcomoebas forever.
Right, yeah. Crackling Drake can be very slow. Thing in the ice is really kind of the most important thing you're doing in the matchup, outside of, you know, having the really busted Phoenix draw. So we players are trying to draw up their opening 7s here. We'll see if Corrigan can keep above 4 this time.
Yeah, and he lost game 2, so he's going to be on the play here. Ken taking a look in his opener after Corrigan kept. I'm sure that's a relief after having to mulligan to 4 last game.
Certainly not a relief for Smith. When my dredge opponent quickly keeps on 7 in a game 3, I am uncomfortable.
Yeah, it looks like both players here are keeping. I'm going to cut down to the match here and make sure that they're good to go. Corrigan here going to lead off with Faithless Looting, one of the best starts the deck can have.
Let's see what he's got for Dredger. There is a Golgari Thug and a Life from the Loam. Those are the 2 discards.
Importantly, 2 dredgers. So Ken Smith having a single surgical extraction won't be able to slow Corrigan down very much.
We'll go Smith's way. Polluted Delta will be the land he starts on. Spot a Lightning Axe and a Faithless Looting, a Lightning Bolt, a very red hand for Ken Smith.
Yeah, and you can see him kind of stress over whether or not to keep this hand, but with Manamorphose, Lightning Axe, Lightning Bolt, Faithless Looting, and a Phoenix, like, you just have to keep that hand.
No dredge for Corrigan. He's going to crack an Arid Mesa, find Stomping Ground, goes to 17.
Yep, and this is going to start potentially a really big chain here. A dredge 4 hitting a Narcomoeba, and we got guaranteed dredge 6 more thanks to those Life from the Loams.
Ooh, and here's a Creeping Chill and a Narcomoeba, another Narcomoeba, and a Prized Amalgam.
Yeah, that's an insane start here. This is turn 2, folks, and we're going to have 5 power on the battlefield and a drain 3 with multiple copies of Life from the Loam in hand, digging to kill with that Conflagrate. Might not even need actual combat damage to hit to win this game. One of the strengths, really, that Creeping Chill adds to the archetype.
So we'll go over to Smith. He'll sacrifice that Polluted Delta end step. That'll bump him down to 16. Corrigan at 20 because of the Creeping Chill.
Yeah, the life totals here are changing pretty fast and furious because of these incidental triggers from things like Creeping Chill, as well as fetch lands and chalk lands and yada yada.
But a lot of bookkeeping in the non-rotating formats.
Yeah, earlier I was on the backup match, and it was Grixis Death Shadow Mirror. And after they both saw that they were playing Death Shadow, I said, okay, I'm going to just make sure your life totals are correct basically every turn. Apologies in advance.
Yeah, for the time-shifted match, someone that's on an off round, we go over there, we keep track of life totals. I always enjoy it when I walk over and one of the players on, like, Tron, just no damage sources to themselves.
Yeah, I actually cracked a joke. I was like, in Modern, you know, most of the time one person's life total matters and one person's doesn't. Occasionally, neither player's life total matters. And in this very particular instance, both of your life totals matter a lot. Not only for just attacking and blocking, but just, Death Shadow math.
So Smith has Spiral of Canal as a second land. Manamorphose for double red. I mentioned it earlier, this hand looks very red.
Yep. And looks like he's going to go for Faithless Looting. And I'm curious if he actually has a Phoenix here to discard. If he does, that's great news for him. He's 100% going to get to trigger it. If not, he might just have to cast another Faithless Looting and hope. But every time he casts Faithless Looting, he goes down a card.
Yeah, so he's thinking a lot about what to discard.
I mean, Lightning Axe, I think, is a fine one to discard. A backup Faithless Looting, it's a negative card overall. So if he has something else to do with that red mana that's beneficial, then that's a fine discard as well.
Discards were Faithless Looting and Lightning Axe. You know, if you're already not discarding a Phoenix and you don't want more cards that make you discard cards, that makes sense. But he's not really doing very much.
Right.
Lightning Bolt on Prized Amalgam.
Yeah, and it looks like I'm curious if he has a surgical extraction here, because if he does, he could hit Bloodghast during the draw step, and then the only way those Prized Amalgams would ever come back is if Corrigan's able to hit one of the 2 remaining Narcomoebas.
Back Corrigan's way. Just a natural draw step here, and he'll cast Life from the Loam. Copperline Gorge, Blood Crypt, Scalding Tarn. Put those in the hand.
Probably going to play a fetch land to kind of protect himself from Surgical, but there's a chance he just plays the Copperline Gorge because otherwise it's going to enter the battlefield tapped. And the 1 point of damage that he deals himself with the fetch land might actually matter.
Goes with the Scalding Tarn, trigger on Bloodghast. That'll come back. Attack for 2 with Narcomoeba, Smith to 14. Prized Amalgam, is this good? It is.
Yeah, and that Lightning Bolt killing the Prized Amalgam last turn effectively just becomes Healing Salve.
Sulphur Falls, third land for Smith there.
Serum Visions to start the turn. Let's see if he can cobble together some answer to this battlefield that's amassing for Corrigan. On top of that, Conflagrate and Life from the Loam combo.
Scry on the Serum Visions looked like another Serum Visions in a land. Those safely go to the bottom, but Smith's got to do something.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't find a Surgical Extraction. He really needed one of those early to strip either the Prize Amalgams or the Narcomoebas or the Bloodghasts. And here he's just kind of treading water with these removal spells. He has a Lightning Axe in hand, maybe another Bolt. Doesn't have a thing in the ice. Doesn't have any anti-graveyard stuff, so just kind of, casting spells and not really gaining any traction.
There's an opt, another one to the bottom. Drew Thought Scour. And just passes. Corrigan will sacrifice that Scalding Tarn and step down to 19.
Yeah, Ken here holding up 1 mana, even though he could cast a draw spell. No real reason, needs to protect his life total. Probably going to throw Lightning Axe at the Prized Amalgam during Abe Corrigan's attack step. Now, depending on what gets hit off for this Life from the Loam, there's a chance Abe actually just wins this turn. He can go for a pretty big Conflagrate. There's quite a few lands in the graveyard, and he gets 3 back, and he gets to play 1.
Yeah, so he started by Dredging Loam. Here's an attack with the creatures. This is an attack for 7. Lightning Axe will target Prized Amalgam. That'll make it just 4.
Yeah, but puts him down to 10, and Abe's got quite a few cards in hand already. I'm curious how he plays this this next turn. He actually has a Creeping Chill in hand, so he could just go land Dome Me for 3, gain 3, and then just go for a big lethal Conflagrate next turn. But the longer he waits on Conflagrate, the more likely it is Ken's able to find a Surgical Extraction and steal the Conflagrates from him. So there's a chance he just throws his entire hand, aside from 1 or 2 cards at Ken right now. And, we got to just, watch and wait and see what Abe decides to do.
You see him kind of making 2-card piles here. It very much looks like he's trying to figure out what he wants to not discard.
Right. I mean, he has access currently to quite a bit of damage. I think he can do 9. I think he's 1 short of lethal here because he has to play the land that he finds off of the Life from the Loam to give himself the second land, the second red.
So there's Life from the Loam, grabs 3 lands. Plays Error Mesa. Yeah,
might only be 8. I don't know. It's
yeah.
close. It's very close to lethal.
It's 8 or 9. It's definitely not 10. And it's just going to be a discard of 2 Golgari Thug. So it was 9.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Like, if Ken does play Surgical here, if he steals Conflagrate from Abe, like, he's still got a lot going on. Still has 4 power on the battlefield, Creeping Chill in hand that he can just hard cast. But I think for the most part, he just didn't want to discard some of the cards in his hand. And notably, he has a copy of Assassin's Trophy, which he wants to hold to make sure that he doesn't end up losing to something like Crackling Drake. Now, though, he might actually get punished and gets smushed by an Anger of the Gods.
Let's just tap a 3. There is Anger of the Gods.
Look, I'm not prophetic. I saw the man tap 3 mana, and I kind of figured that's what was coming.
It can't be that many things.
Yeah.
That'll exile the board there, the 2 Narcomoebas and the Bloodghast.
I mean, if Ken wants to win this game, that is certainly the first place he needs to start as far as clawing it back in. Now, Abe still has 7 cards in hand. He's going to draw up to 8. Dredge Loam. That's up to 8. He's going to down to 7, up to 10. And I think he actually has lethal here on that Conflagrate, as long as he has 3 lands to hit for the Life from the Loam.
Well, here's a Dredge's Stinkweed Imp. Life from the Loam, Faithless Looting. Conflagrate, Creeping Chill, that makes it easy.
Yeah, that should be more than enough. Unless Ken has something like Life from the Loam or sorry, something like Spell Pierce or Surgical right now, the game is over. Abe's just going to try to figure out the best way to play around everything, I think, but just going to get 3 lands back and probably just throw 7 cards at Ken and hope that there's no Spell Pierce at the ready.
Yeah, there's a tap at 2. Bunch of cards being set aside to be discarded. Keep that Creeping Chill. Might need to cast that one. But yeah, Smith is at 7 from that Creeping Chill earlier. Here's Conflagrate. That looks like 7 cards, and that's going to do it. Abe Corrigan advances to 7-0 with the win over Is It Phoenix.
That's really impressive stuff from Abe. Obviously, a great dredge pilot, knows exactly what his deck is capable of. Mulligan down to 4, kept a pretty solid 4 in game 2. Unable to draw the second land, didn't really put up much of a fight, but game 3 just had it all. Turn 2 Cathartic Reunion, really got the ball rolling. Eternal and Faithless Looting as well, and that's all she wrote. The Arclight Phoenix deck in that spot absolutely has to have a Surgical Extraction to at least slow you down. And if they don't have that, or at turn 3 Anger of the Gods, chances are you're just going to get run over. And even though he drew the Anger of the Gods on like turn 4 or 5, it was just not enough to keep him from dying to that Conflagrate plus Life from the Loam package. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I think Creeping Chill just gives the deck a new dimension, because it can kill you without using the attack step. And that's just not something the Dredge has really been able to do before.
Yeah, really powerful stuff. Abe Corrigan undefeated 7-0 here at the Modern Open. Ken Smith still a 6-1, still a very good tournament for him. In round number 7, we are going to be going to a time shifted match. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with that.